It can be difficult to understand the impact of any given athlete's career without having lived through their highest and lowest moments, but thankfully, in the age of the internet, a fighter's trajectory can be squeezed into an evening's viewing. With that in mind, we're going to include some old, some new, and a few that fall in between. So without further ado, sit back, relax, and get ready to be entertained. These are 5 binge-worthy MMA careers to keep you occupied during your downtime. Number 1. Lando Vannata. First up, it's the groovy one himself, Lando Vannata, a man whose UFC record of 3-4-2 does very little in highlighting exactly how electric a competitor he actually is. Absolutely relentless in his offense, and as diverse as any in his shot selection, Vannata's UFC career is among the oddest and most asterisk-heavy of this era. Debuting in the promotion as a short-notice opponent for Tony Ferguson, Lando almost pulled off a career-defining upset in a fight-of-the-night winning effort that saw him establish himself as one of the most exciting fighters at 155 pounds. His high-volume output perhaps leaves him over-reliant on his chin at times, but trust us, in spurts, Vannata has been able to display moments of complete and utter genius inside the octagon. It's hard to know exactly how far this Jackson Wink product can go at the top flight, but everything from his massively underrated showdown with Matt Frevola to his stunning performance against John McDessie serves as concrete proof that groovy Lando Vannata is an unmissable spectacle. Number 2. Robbie Lawler. While I'm fully aware that Lawler's name is a fairly obvious pick, the man's career holds within it several undeniable gems that are perhaps not known to those who are familiar only with his run as champion. As one of MMA's finest late bloomers, Lawler's status as a legend of the sport has been set in stone thanks to his incredible wars with Rory MacDonald, Johnny Hendricks and Carlos Condit. But to fully understand the trajectory followed by the Ruthless One, a dive into his appearances in Strikeforce, Elite XC and his time spent at middleweight are essential to truly appreciate how insane his run has actually been. His early career clash with Nick Diaz showed Lawler as a raw talent, one who was vicious almost to a fault. His battles with Murillo Hua and Matt Linland are certainly standouts that are worth checking out, and if you've never had the pleasure of watching his one-round classic against Melvin Manhoef, I would urge you to seek it out immediately. An icon in every sense of the word. Number 3. Genki Sudo. If you're looking for a good excuse to roll back the clock and dive into some golden era Japanese MMA, look no further than the unmissable Genki Sudo. A showman to his very core, everything from his memorable walkouts to his unorthodox fighting style makes him a unique character in a sport filled to the brim with unique characters. And don't get it twisted folks, Sudo was certainly skilled, leaving the sport with a 16-4-1 record while holding wins over the likes of Hoyler Gracie, Mike Brown, Nate Marquardt and the gargantuan boxer himself, Butterbean. His tendency to dance in the face of danger might suggest that he was an example of style over substance, but make no mistake, Sudo was a legitimate threat and an outstanding submission artist, winning 12 of his 16 career victories by submission. At its very core, mixed martial arts is there to entertain, and while Sudo might not have always competed at the highest level, he left a lasting impression on the sport and remains a cult favourite among its fans. Number 4. Nick Diaz. So much time has passed since Nick Diaz's last walk to the octagon that we may well have missed out on his prime years as a fighter, time that could have seen him truly establish himself within the UFC once again. Sure, Diaz's most recent outings saw him largely nullified by his opponents, but before the inactivity and the quite frankly ridiculous suspensions that have defined his later years, Diaz was one of the very best welterweights to ever do it. His run as the champion of the Strikeforce 170-pound division contained within it some of the most uniquely awesome fights in the promotion's history. Frank Shamrock, Marius Saramskis, Evangelista Cyborg Santos, and of course, Paul Daly, all fighters who had the misfortune of coming up against one of the most freakishly well-conditioned and high-intensity competitors to ever lace up gloves. If we're being completely honest, his final 3 outings aside, Nick has barely been in anything less than a great fight, and while it's looking increasingly unlikely that he'll ever compete again, the man has already given us so many memorable moments inside the cage. Number 5. Cory Sandhagen. And finally, we come to our 5th recommendation, a man who could well become a major player on the pound-for-pound rankings before too long, bantamweight contender Cory Sandhagen. Currently ranked as the 4th best 135-pound fighter in the UFC, if you haven't yet had the time to catch up on this Elevation Fight Team fighter's progress, you really are in for a treat. Mixed martial arts is a sport that evolves through the innovative efforts of those competing within it, and in Sandhagen, we're looking at one of the most technically advanced fighters at bantamweight right now. With a wide arsenal of kicks, phenomenal distance control, and a relentless pressure-heavy style, Sandhagen in just 5 fights has already proven that he deserves to be mentioned on any list of potential future champions. From his stunning display of grit and determination against Iori Alcantara, to his clinical dismantling of perennial contender Rafael Assunção, Sandhagen is an elite talent no doubt, one who stands within touching distance of a crack at the divisional championship belt. If you have any suggestions of your own, feel free to leave them in the comment section below, and of course, if you're enjoying the content, be sure to like and subscribe.